We were often told a lie growing up that we're leaders of tomorrow. And as I went through my 20s, I realized that the people who told me I was a leader were still leading in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, or should we say ruling. So the issues that plague Africa are still the issues that plagued Africa 20 years ago when we started.
We have the highest number of unemployed youths. What that says in a couple of years is that Africa would either be the largest workforce in the world or the largest criminal force.
Africa as a continent has been known as an emerging market. And you can't separate the opportunities from the young people, because wherever young people are, then the opportunities abound.
And we can only develop if young people are empowered and equipped to have the space to express their brilliance and passion.
And if you look at the innovations, the new ideas, the creativity, whether in technology, in music, in pop culture, in civic engagement and civic technology, you see that the young people are the ones who are really leading the way.
There are many bright spots, and where you see those bright spots in Africa, they're really linked to effective, committed and dynamic leadership. They're linked to a strong private sector and a civil society that works. And that's the vision we have. Young people are agents of change, and that's what we're pushing for. Well, when we started Leap Africa, there were no other leadership development organizations across the continent that we could look to as examples. So we had to look to organizations around the world. Our first Pioneer Board was just delighted to serve. People were energized, excited about the vision and the mission.
For me, it was awesome, just how young people were being impacted. There's a huge need for intergenerational dialogue.
I love engaging with young people who show potential, who can dream dreams and want to go places. So my task is to guide them and to ensure that those energies that they have are channeled in the right direction to achieve results.
Our corporate governance is one that is very rich and has also allowed us to evolve over time because they kept pushing us. That has shifted our strategy over time, even where our mission remained the same.
We're also very fortunate to attract some very committed funders like the Ford Foundation. They give us our seed grants to start.
It was quite responsive to our needs as an organization, and some of the heads of the Ford Foundation back then also were people who truly believed in the vision of Leap, and they gave us a lot of support.
That said, it wasn't easy because obviously we had a young team, we had to build a brand. So we literally went out to the streets. We used to go to schools and give out flyers for people to apply to our first leadership program.
The programs that we had was a youth leadership program, and then we had leadership for health, the Integrity Institute. Those were the three programs. I still remember Ndidi and I actually trekking around Unilag, trying to actually recruit young people for for our youth leadership program.
We were always busy. We were always on planes. We were always going from one city to the other. And the highlight of the year was always the Youth Awards, the annual Youth Awards, because we saw everything that we did during the year come to life. We saw the impact. We saw the young people. They would come from across Nigeria, from the north, from the east, and it was always like a carnival.
One of the things we did during that period, or just leading to that period, was we had an institutional impact assessment done by a partner, and we found out that our core competencies, where we're getting the best results, where we could create unusual value within the social sector space, was youth. And so
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this beautiful afternoon. Thank you for honoring our invitation to be a part of our 21st anniversary webinar. We're really excited to have you here, and we're excited to share the afternoon with everyone. My name is Ellen, and I'm part of the communications team at Leap Africa. And today I'm going to be your host for this amazing webinar titled Responsible Leadership, Designing the Blueprint for a Prosperous Africa. So now that we have welcomed ourselves, I think in the chat will be great. Thank you, Abdul Razak. Has started off by introducing himself. So please let's introduce ourselves in the chat box and where are you joining this call from? So let's see who we have here. We have friends of Leap, Leapers, ex-Leapers, well-wishers, partners. Please let's introduce ourselves. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining in. I'm a very proud Leaper, so this is a good day for me to celebrate the 21st anniversary of this great institution that I am a part of. Thank you so much. We have people joining in from Ghana. It's good to see that Africa again is represented. Thank you so much. Okay, so starting out, I mentioned this is our 21st anniversary webinar. Leap Africa turns 21 on Monday, and it's been an exciting couple of decades and years for us, and we're excited to share our work with you and also where we're going to. Today, I'm just going to give a brief rundown on what today is going to look like. So today, we're going to start off with a welcome speech by the executive director. Then we are going to have our keynote address from the Commissioner of Education for Lagos State. And then we are going to share a report of the work we have done in the past 20 years. And we are going to move on to share what our vision is for the next 20, if possible. And we're inviting you to tighten your seatbelt as we take you through this journey through the past and also cast our light to the future to show you where we're going to. And hopefully you can find points and places which you can be a part of this growth and work that we are doing. So thank you so much. Keep the introductions coming. And we would be moving on to the welcome address. So I'm going to welcome the executive director, my executive director, Kehinde Ayeni, who would be giving the welcome address. Over to you, Kenny.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Just a second, trying to turn on my video now. I am right here. Just a second. So I came in and I'm right in the middle of it. So just give me a moment to gather my thoughts. And thank you for the invitation, and well done to everyone who has managed to make it to our webinar today. A very, very good morning all the way from me to you. Thank you everyone for joining us again. My work is very simple. Thank you to the hosts that have put this together. I will start by, excuse me, I will start by introducing the organization very briefly for those who have just happened to encounter the organization for the first time. So Leap Africa is a leadership development organization, yet it is a nonprofit with the focus on raising ethical leaders for Africa. We are very passionate about ensuring that Africa is well supported with the resources that will drive its actual realization of its full potential. And what does that really mean? It means that we are solving some of the hardest problems when we think about youth transitions and when we think about youth leadership development. 1 in every African, or 1 in 5 Africans, will be encountering or will face a barrier in their lifetime when it comes to education, employability, entrepreneurship, access to health, an opportunity to really be partisan or participate in active citizenship. Because of our terrain and because of culture and so many ethnicity biases and all of these things, it's very important that we begin to look at how to close these gaps and limit differentiation of young people, particularly young Africans. And so we have a Pan-African vision. Our vision essentially is to ensure that not only do we have homegrown leaders in Nigeria, but widespread across Africa. And that's why our organization exists in a very nutshell, to do an intro about us. But yes, we want to excite you about the concept of leadership. Yes, over many years, the concept of leadership has been unpacked to a large extent. However, there is still a little bit of excitement to what responsible leadership is, and it's essentially what you make of it. When you think about responsible leadership, you're really speaking to ethical leadership, values-driven leadership, and so much more than that. But I'm not going to go into what that is because we have an exceptional person ready to usher in the conversations around the theme. But I was going to give a background to why we thought about this. Because our essence is still very relevant, because our purpose is still very relevant in Africa today, we felt that it was important that we spotlight responsible leadership. We've had all sorts of leaders in the past. Our organization is 20 years or 21 years today, and we've seen decades of leaders across Africa, in our communities, in our nations, in our organizations. Because when we think about leadership, people assume it's so much about the presidency alone, or most times, but it's way larger and bigger than that. And when we put the spotlight on Africa, our desire is to really have a prosperous continent. It would be great if we can have more exciting news coming out of Africa. And so we want to excite you about the opportunities that Africa could have when we have responsible leaders, responsible leadership driving the arms of the work that is done, starting from our local communities into the nation discourse itself, into policies that are created, and so much more than that. I would also like to let you know, by putting out a theme like this, the conversation is just getting started. When you think about a prosperous Africa, really, what's not to love? Africa is blessed beyond measure. Africa has got a lot of natural resources. These are resources that people will give anything to have, but we have it because we are naturally blessed. And when you think also about Africa, why are we not as prosperous as other nations or other continents, given that we have the most stable climate? When you think about natural disasters that happen in other parts of the world, we don't have situations like this. And so it's important that as we think about designing a blueprint for a prosperous Africa, we are thinking about all that Africa has to offer. And I will not be remiss to mention that another important capital that Africa has got is its people. Africa has got huge human capital. We are exporting our capital to the world. And so it's important that as we think of the blueprint again, what are the roles of people in driving the Africa and engendering the Africa that we want? What are the kind of people that we need to invest in? Are we seriously investing sufficiently in people in Africa, in ourselves? Do we have African solutions by Africans for Africa? Or are we importing everything? Everything that comes from outside of the continent is great and very useful. However, we are in a very unique context. And so it's important that we also address the capital potential with the right resources that is necessary for that. I would also like to mention that our keynote speaker for today is someone that is very dear to our organization. When we think about the Honorable Minister or Honorable Commissioner of Education, she is someone that has extensive background in education. And as I said before in our opening, that one of the biggest pain points for us as Africans is investment is needed in education. And this person has invested decades of her career supporting the development of talents through education. And now that she is at the helm of affairs, she's able to share the work that she's doing, even more recently at the public sector, because she's come from the corporate sector, private sector, from academia after many years of working there to now coming into public sector. Because you really cannot, let me just reassure you, you really cannot talk about reimagining Africa and imagining our nation without being involved in the public space, in the public sector. And that's why it has come forward for us to be able to have someone who has worked essentially in the private sector, move into the public space to see how much more she could do to serve and close the gaps that she has seen working in the private space. And so you are in good company. By all means, today you're going to have an amazing time when she shares from her work more recently at the Ministry of Education. I'd like to underscore that if we can solve the problems in Nigeria, we can solve the problems in other African nations. Because I have found, speaking to hundreds, I haven't yet gotten to millions of people yet, hundreds of, potentially even 1,000 or more, that our problems are quite identical. The issues that we're solving in Nigeria today are the issues that affect other Africans in other parts of the world. Now, Nigeria is one of the most populous nations in the continent, and it's also important that the solutions that we have in Nigeria are much exported to the other parts of the continent. And so the conversations around today's theme is to see how we can solve the problems of Nigeria to the point that we are able to share these best practices with the world, or even more realistically, share it with more Africans today. I would also like to, close, because I know that the rest of the team are anxious for you to get started with the rest of the conversation, to ask you to sign up to one of our programs if you haven't already. There are many resources that we have prepared to support this topic of leadership, whether you want to sign up for our programming, whether you want to support an intervention or campaign that we have designed to project young people's voices, please feel free to do that. And with that, I'm going to leave you in the very capable hands of the moderators, panelists, and our honorable speaker, and the rest of the team who have assembled this webinar together. Thank you so much for joining us. I will also close by thanking all the members of the team, the board, our partners, founder, who have made today a reality, because this is someone's vision that we've been driving and spearheading, because it's still relevant to today and will be relevant as we think about the future of Africa. So with that, I leave you in the capable hands of the team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Thank you for that amazing welcome speech. And thank you for setting the ball rolling in the right direction. Without further delay, I would welcome our keynote speaker. And as we gear up to listen to our keynote speaker, I would introduce her. So Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, who is the Lagos State Commissioner for Education, is a Nigerian academic and a teacher. Folashade Adefisayo is an education activist with a passion for student learning, school transformation, and teacher training. She's deeply concerned about the learning crisis in the Nigerian education system and has volunteered to work with the federal government, Lagos State government, Osun State government, and Oyo State government. She is also dedicated to improving other people's lives and has served as a volunteer with a number of nonprofits, Federal Nigerian Society for the Blind, Volunteer Corps, Junior Achievement, Faith Foundation, YEDI, Teach for Nigeria, Owando Foundation, SOTE, Talk, and this is just a running list amongst others. She was a Merit Award winner of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and a university scholar of the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. In 2011, she decided to get certified as a professional educator and embarked on an online postgraduate course at the University of Nottingham. Folashade Adefisayo graduated with distinctions and at both diploma and master's level. Our Honorable Commissioner is widely traveled and has been to Europe, North America, Far East, and the Middle East, and has proudly visited nearly all the countries in Africa. Please just welcome the Honorable Commissioner, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, as she delivers her keynote speech.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you, Ma. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. It's quite an auspicious day for me because this is my last day in office. The cabinet is going to be dissolved this afternoon. And of course, I'm going to attend the valedictory executive committee meeting or EXCO. So it's auspicious because, why on this day, when incidentally I have 6 events and this is my 3rd or 4th, why on this day am I talking to you? I thank you very much. You've made me reflect rather than just go from place to place, but really reflect and say, what have these past 4 years been? But before I go in, let me first of all greet Faith Foundation, Leap Africa. Leap Africa, it should be one of the organizations I have also volunteered with, because I think I used to train some of their teachers and so on some years ago. And Ndidi Muneli is somebody who, she's younger than me, much younger, of course, but she's also like, for me, a mentor, because I don't think mentoring comes by age alone, but it's also somebody from whom you can learn. And I have learned a lot from her. I value my relationship with her, and I will always value that relationship. It's a very choice one, and I thank her for giving me many opportunities over the years. So having said that, let me go into what I want to talk about today. I did have a prepared speech, but on my way here, I started to reflect and say, it's time to really think deeply about what these last 3.5 years have been, about how I have tried to mainstream my values into a very different kind of environment. And I think it's fair for me to say that the public service is very different from corporate Nigeria. When I came in, and I came in strictly from the private sector. I'd always worked in private schools. I'd been director of a school. I'd done things like that. But the last 3 years before I became a commissioner, I actually worked in the public sector. But again, as a consultant and not full-time. So I wasn't privy to the way the internal processes worked. I happened to work with the Osun State government, where I was asked to run one of the mega schools built by the government of Aregbesola. And this was in Osogbo. And I ran this school beautiful school, lovely children, for like 1.5 years, during which I knew why, and I totally understood my purpose in life. It's because of children like that who don't have access to the funding and so on that other children who have. Children from very poor homes, because you can imagine that they were asked to pay 2,000 naira each. Some paid 10 times. Tranches of 200 today, 50 tomorrow, 300 the day after. I'm sure that many of us here cannot comprehend somebody not having 2,000 naira and having to pay it over like 6 months or so. Well, those are the children I was dealing with. But there I saw a lot of talent, a lot of love of self, a lot of country, a lot of optimism. Children who believed that, things can get better and should get better. Of course, they were tainted, of course, like all our students are, by the poor value system we have around us. They had not had a good enough initial quality of education. In fact, many could not read, and I was dealing with senior secondary. So I had to come to Lagos to talk to a lot of my friends that, look, give me books. I remember driving down to Shogbo in my car, and I had to drive because nobody else could sit in the car with me. It was an old Prado filled with books from many schools. And here I have to say thank you to friends who gave me books. So I was able to set up like a place where children could learn to read, because there were just some had never read a storybook before. It was a very different demographic. And like I said, I think it prepared me for this job. It let me know that these are very talented, clever, smart children. Their problem was just that they were poor. And that was surely not their fault. It was mere accident of birth that they were born to parents who could not afford the things that most of us can afford. Of course, there were some who were not in that category. And for students not in that category, again, I could see that they were able to blend. So students can blend and be happy in whatever environment they find themselves. So after I left Oshogbo, I now went to Benin, where I worked with the Edo Best project, where using the power of technology, teachers were able to teach across Edo State. And this led to massive changes in the public school system in Edo State, with children wanting to join, with rising population of public schools. It led to, of course, improved teaching and learning. It led to children being able to read at the right time. In fact, there was a process where they did something called teaching at the right level, where students were taught according to their ability to read. And also, so I was there with all sorts of projects being done deliberately to improve teaching and learning in the classroom, to improve public schools. And there again, I met another set of human beings, wonderful people who worked with their whole heart and mind, who gave of what they had so that the children in their community could rise and grow. And that from there, I now came to Lagos State, never having been a politician, never having been a civil servant. I wasn't used to the methodologies by which people worked. I wasn't used to so many things. And of course, being the CEO of an organization at a point in my career, I was used to approving things and having them done within a week or two. I didn't know there were places where you approve things and 6 months later, nothing much has been done, because of the very, very bureaucratic, slow processes. And this, of course, gives way to rent seeking. So, of course, people wouldn't help or wouldn't do what they should do because they were all expecting something or the other. And I learned, so that was a massive culture shock for me. And I really had a very steep learning curve. I say it myself that I made mistakes which came because I didn't know that people needed things from me in order to do their work. I didn't know so many things, and that saddened me a lot. But I think, and that is where leadership comes in. When you are a leader, you have no time to start worrying about your mistakes. You rise up, dust yourself, and move on. And so that was something that I owed myself in that task, in that I would get up and say, the next challenge is coming and I have to meet it. I have to understand why I'm here. And honestly, I would say this, that I've worked with many people, I've worked in many places, But I have rarely seen the kind of people that I worked with in the civil service. I worked with some really superb people, very clever, very smart, very knowledgeable. You see, there's a lot of knowledge residing in the civil service. There's a lot of understanding of their environment, of the processes, of the best way to do things. They are professionals in the true sense of the word. So I think for us, we've got to disabuse ourselves of that notion that I'm going to work with people who do. No, they know more than people who work in corporate Nigeria, because they've seen many more situations. It's like when you go to a hospital where they mainly, like a little hospital in the corner of your neighborhood, where they are used to dealing with fever, temperature, and so on. And you go to somewhere like Luth, where they are used to dealing with the worst possible cases. So you know that there's a great knowledge gap between those two kinds of institutions. And that was what I meant. So in working there, how does one bring in one's values? I was very particular about my values, and for many reasons. And the first was, I had worked all this time without doing things that I felt were anti everything I believed in, and I was still comfortable enough with what I was doing. I did not emerge as a wealthy person or anything, but wealth was never my focus, but to live, pardon me, but to live the way I always want to live, to be able to travel, to be able to buy books, to be able to read, to be able to meet with a lot of people. Those were always the values that excited me. And so if I was always able to do that, I didn't really mind much about wealth. So I had worked in all these places, and so that was the value for me in working. The other, please pardon me, I'm in an unfamiliar environment and I'm reacting. Please pardon me. Yes, so for me, what were these values? Secondly, I had succeeded so far, I felt, in everything I had done without falling out of the upbringing that my parents had given me. My father, who I'm always proud to say, Michael Adebayo Ifatuwoti, was Commissioner for Education and Commissioner for Economic Development first, and then Education in the Old West in Ibadan. So I grew up in Ibadan. When I was an undergrad in university, my father was Commissioner for Education in the West. And my dad left that job in the 70s. He passed away like 10 years ago, but up till now, we have not seen anything untoward about him. Wherever I have gone in my life, whether when I was getting married or everywhere, people always greeted me and said, "Oh, you are the daughter of M.A., a good man, a really good man, an honest man, a diligent man, a clever man. I'm his daughter, his first child." And I said, no, that legacy is so strong. I must not be the person that spoils it. So that was always a driving force for me. And always a driving force for me as an educationist were the students. What do I owe them? Do I owe them anything? What should I do to ensure that every child who comes in contact with me is a better off for it? And my mantra as an educationist was simple. There is an A star in every child. My job is to find that A star. I'm not talking about A star in exam scores. I'm saying inside every child, there's a genius waiting to be tapped and discovered. My job as an educationist is to tap into it and discover that. And so these were the guiding forces that followed me even into the commissionership position. It was not an easy time, and maybe one day I'll be able to write my experiences without betraying confidences, but it was a very, very tough time for me indeed, because I had these things always before me. And to help me along the way, I had my father's photograph so that I could always glance up and say, "Oh, Baba, what would you have done if you were faced by this particular circumstance?" And I thank God Almighty that the fourth guiding principle, overarching over everything, was my belief in God and my trust that if I did well and I was not ashamed to go to my father and say, "Thank you, I have done what you sent me into the world to do," then I would know I was successful. And I knew that the reason why I came into this world was to influence children, to make sure that every child, like I said, who comes into contact with me is the better off for it. And so that was just my guiding principle. Those were my four principles. Again, starting from my track record in my career track record, starting with my family background, remembering that it's all about the child, and of course, putting God before me. All these things were what concentrated my mind and allowed me to achieve whatever little success I achieved in this job. The other thing that I always remember in this is that I'm a professional. I studied this thing called education long after being a banker for many years, and I love it. And so I was able to put to bear my understanding, my professionalism, my growth over the years, my knowledge over the years from various jobs. And I have done many jobs. I have worked in banking, I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked for Nigerian companies, I've worked for foreign companies. And so I was able to put all these together and come and develop what I hope to be a vision for the education sector. It was based on, I stood on the shoulders of giants, because again, there were people before me who led me along this pathway as well. Some were relatives, like my uncle, my mother's brother, Chief Olu Akinkugbe, who I respect to such an extent I don't even understand. And who kept telling me, Shade, do well, do well, do well. Never wanted to hear anything untoward about me, and made me know that. I hope I haven't disappointed him. And there were other giants in the education sector, private school owners, school officials and so on, people who had, even teachers who had taught me many years ago. So learning from all this, drinking from that pool of knowledge, and working with the master plan for Lagos, which is a very strong and well-written document. And working with my team in the ministry, who, like I said, were some of the greatest professionals I have ever seen. We were able to come up with a vision and a mission and a plan for the educational sector. It was a 15-plan document and a 15-themed document. And it was too ambitious. Now I look back on it. But like I said, I hadn't worked in public service. I've been in private service. I know those 15 things were doing. But because of the slow processes, the lack of computerization, the rather obsolete skills, too many people were analog. We hardly used the computer. In fact, my computer skills, which are quite good, I felt were starting to decline at a point in time. So I felt that plan was a bit ambitious. But now when I look back, there were some major things that one just had to do. Why are we sending children to school? We have to remain focused on that. It's so that they come out and become productive citizens, living efficiently and effectively in the environment they're going into. In which case, we have to teach them everything. We have to provide a holistic education, which is way beyond academics. Academics are all well and good, but we have got to find a way by which children are going to be able to make a living. Many of these children in public schools are from very poor homes. When they are done, even if they pass WAEC, even if they have 9A1s in WAEC, they cannot go to university because they cannot afford it. And so we have to find a way by which they can afford it. First, there are scholarships. And secondly, we had to give them skills in school, which they could parley and use in university. And so we started to think about things like comprehensive schools, where while they're doing senior secondary, they learn at master level, honestly, how to do things like plumbing, carpentry, hairdressing, fashion design, and so on. This started with a pilot of 12. We've been struggling a bit, but again, I'm optimistic that it will continue. There were other things that we had to think about, like the curriculum. We all know that we all worry about the Nigerian curriculum. It's too broad. It's so broad that it's not deep. So deep learning doesn't happen. And because of the methods by which we assess learning, we're looking at what educationists call the lower order thinking skills, it tends to be so, it further reinforces the need for a student to just cram and pour. We had to ensure deep learning. To ensure deep learning means that you have to embed concepts like critical thinking, problem solving, innovation, creativity into the curriculum. And so that's when and luckily I got in just at the start of a 3-year cycle where we would readdress our schemes of work. We would use the Nigerian curriculum quite all right. We are Nigerians. So I felt that, well, we should develop that curriculum in such a way that it is the curriculum that Nigeria should have. So we took the Nigerian curriculum, broke it into schemes, termly, weekly, by subject, 75 subjects across all levels from nursery to SS3, and of course, including technical subjects as well. I embedded core skills into them, core skills such as collaboration, teamwork, problem solving, critical thinking, embedded technical IT into them, and then pushed out to the public. Again, because we are so analog, it was by print, but we've recently developed an app and we rolled it out, and that app should now be widely available for people where they'll be able to download our schemes. And we are starting another 3-year cycle this year. So I'm hoping again that is on that I build sustainability in such a way that it goes on whether I'm there or not. And so what do we teach our students? How do we teach our students? The people who are the most critical factor in any school, even beyond what you teach, is who teaches. And we have to get teaching right. Luckily, Lagos State it pays the highest salaries in the country. So our teachers, essentially, in the public service, please don't mistake me, we pay the highest salaries for public school teachers, and therefore we were able to attract teachers. We started recruiting teachers, recruited nearly 10,000 teachers during my 3.5-year stay, and gave them really superb training. So what we're doing is really gently easing out the old and bringing in the new with new skills, who are taken through a very serious orientation program. And yes, sorry, pardon me, slight distraction. So we've done that, and then we had to look at these teachers too. When you do that, how do you ensure teachers have a sense of who they are? Luckily, again, in Lagos State, teachers have a chance to become permanent secretaries. This is almost unheard of throughout the country and in the federal service as well. But in Lagos State, former teachers, former principals can get to the position of Tutor General Permanent Secretary. And in which case they will be in charge of a group of schools, ensuring that teaching and learning goes on well there. So we were happy that we had true professionals as our permanent secretaries. And with that, there was a career path. So we reinforced that by working with our principals, holding them accountable for results, saying, look, the WAEC results have come out. Things like competitions are happening. Bad behavior is happening in your school. You are the principal, you are in charge of it. So these are some of the measures that we took, holding them accountable, getting them to develop plans for how they were going to address problems, giving them more funds to be able to run their schools, because the running cost they were getting was really abysmal. It's still poor, but we were able to multiply 2.5 times in one instance and 5 times in another instance, and double it in another instance, so that they at least had a bit more with which they could run their schools. And so this went on. That is the ability of the principals, giving them more skills with which they can run their schools, giving them more funds with which to run their schools, so that we're able to address the schools as well. You will notice that anything I say, I cannot ascribe it to myself as commissioner. I must ascribe it to the fact that the state had people in that position even before me who were committed to how we could improve the schools. Just a minute. Power bank. Just my bag. So who were committed to how, you will please pardon me, it's a very difficult day for me because I'm commissioning a school in Butemeta. I'm working with children in another school, and I'm coming from 2 events. So please pardon me if I seem distracted. So we were able to work with the schools to improve what they were doing. And then infrastructure. Luckily, the governor was willing to listen to us and therefore expended quite a huge sum, billions of naira on repairing. At least we had about 1,800 different projects, furniture, toilets, whole school buildings, new schools. New schools had not been built in Lagos for many years. And clearly there was a dearth of schools, but we were able to set up about, I think 23 new schools across the state. We're able to set up 23 new schools across the state and have children in all these schools, which we're very proud of. I think this is a great legacy of the Sanwo-Olu administration, to be able to set up schools, something that hadn't been done for so many years. And there were other projects. There was team. There was a public, determination to work with the private sector, and so we had all sorts of partners. I think when they saw that we were serious, because the development partners said they couldn't come to Lagos. We are rich, apparently, so we had to look for support elsewhere. So we had old school, old students associations, all sorts of NGOs, faith-based organizations, all sorts of institutions supporting us. We had some were training our students and our teachers, some were giving us their curriculum, some were building labs and workshops for us. There was a chap who donated a project a year, a library, sick bay, and so on. So we had this group of maybe about 150 supporters, and which was quite remarkable, and who supported us in various ways. So you can see it was a collaboration of so many people working together. But the main thing was that there was leadership, and the leadership had set out its values. And in rounding up, and I do have to round up now, I tried to study and find out now, when you talk about leadership, what and values, how should a leader pass on their values to their values? And I found a lot. One of the first things is you have to be clear about yourself. Leadership is about serving others. Leadership is about making others look good. Leadership is humility. It's not about pushing yourself and saying, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. People will acknowledge you. That comes, but it's not the reason. And so you have to be clear in your person that I want to serve. I'm here to serve. And that's why I still enjoy, many of us in private life, to join the public service, because you should want to serve. That is where you can scale. When people greet me and say, I'm the mother of 1 million children and still counting. Yes, there are about 1 million children in our public schools. There are 2.5 million children in school in Lagos. So I don't count myself as mother of one. I actually count myself as a mother of 3.5 to 4-5 million children, including those out of school who we have to provide for, who grow every day due to unbridled migration into Lagos, such that for the first time in many, many years, we now have a huge population and we have to provide for them, which would involve the use of technology. So a leader has to be clear. And I think I'm going to still keep talking about Lagos State and being a leader with values. What are your own values? Who are you? What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be remembered for? You want to be remembered because you had the Rolls Royce and you had what do you call it? And you had 15 houses around the world. What are you going to do with all those? I consider myself one of the richest human beings that have ever lived because of those 5 to 6 million children. Because wherever I go and whatever I do, somebody always comes up to say, I know you. You did, if it hadn't been for you, you did this for me. Because of you, I'm who I am. So I count myself one of the richest human beings who has ever lived. And I thank God for that, because it was not because of me, but because he supported me and gave me the spirit to be able to do the things that I did. So I think you have to be clear about your values, who you are and what you want. If what you want is to be extremely rich, there's another pathway for that. And there's nothing wrong with it. I have no problems with it. I, as a person, am clear about what I want. And I think I have achieved to a large extent what I want. The second thing about clarity is let the people who work with you know. When I came in and I looked at my desk, there was no computer. How can I work like this? So they knew immediately that this is not a commissioner who will be writing biro all the time. I need technology around me. And when COVID came, and when I started preaching about technology, people were like, no, this is public service. It can't work. We have 1 million children, 1,700 schools. How can we? So COVID came and all the children were indoors. What do? We had to do something. So we started from the lowest form of technology, which was radio. We got people to donate. But the first donation was mine. I called my staff. I am going to donate. Radios are 2,000, but we found that there were children in Lagos State who could not afford a radio. So we had to look, I said, look, my first donation will be mine. And we got so many people to donate for us. Then we got to a stage where a bank noticed and donated devices, and we were able to give our students mobile devices. We were able to work with a company that gave us a platform where they could access the curriculum and teach and learn online. Our teachers are teaching on radio, teaching on Telegram, teaching on WhatsApp, teaching on the internet itself. So you see what leadership can, you galvanize people. You must be ready as a leader to take people out of their comfort zone. So that, it was like, what can we do? Our children will stay at home. Hopefully, COVID won't be for long. What if it is? So these children will suffer immensely from staying at home. No matter what we did, they suffered immensely. But at least we cushioned this with some learning at home. And I will always be grateful to organizations that supported us. We got free airtime. People said it wasn't possible, but I went around and some radio stations, some TV stations gave us free airtime. For a year, we were broadcasting every day for like 4 hours on some radio and television stations. So again, as a leader, lead from in front. I've never known anything but to be in front. I am the leader. Maybe as a first child of in a polygamous environment, you learn to say, look, I am the leader. We lead from in front. So a leader has to lead. They have to see, you have to role model the changes yourself. So that is how you embed your values in whatever you are doing. Your people have to know. Constant communication. Celebrate your people. We used to do a party end of year. We dance and eat and enjoy ourselves. I will look, come and eat with me. On my birthday, I didn't want people to give me things. I gave. So come and eat with me, enjoy with me, take a gift home if I can afford it, and so on and so forth. Just to say thank you to the people who work with me. Because I know my hours are long, I spend long hours in the office. So people who work with me necessarily work long hours, work on Saturday sometimes, work on Sunday sometimes. So I have to thank them. So remember to celebrate your people, thank them, love them, care for them. Ask about them. They're looking sad. What's the matter? How can I help you? Have a one-on-one relationship with your staff. I didn't always have this. In fact, it took a 360-degree feedback many years ago when I was CEO, when they said, all I care about is for them to work. So I said, wow, I have to care about people. So that's when I started to really care about my own staff. I cared about the students, but what about the people who work with me on a daily basis? So again, those are some of the things that we have to do to embed our values in our organizations. I will not lie to you and tell you that working in public service meant that I was able to radically transform the values. No, but I think the people who were around me knew that I had my values. They tried to share some of my values. Nothing anybody would do would make me change my values because it had always worked for me, worked well. It has prospered me in many unimaginable ways. I have been in places where people have done things for me, and I'm like, why do you want to do this for me? I've been in places where people have gifted me things that, in fact, my family and I have a policy on gifts. Once it's above a certain value, I don't take it. So if they've gifted me something, I will say thank you. I probably won't take it, but I will know that this person values me. So I urge all of us, even as we go on our leadership journey, it's a tough journey, and I'm leaving the place older, grayer, possibly in poorer health. I've always been a very healthy kind of person, but possibly slightly lower, poorer health, less, more cynical than I've ever been, which I don't want, and I'm going to fight. With less belief in my fellow man, which I'm not happy about either, because I keep wondering, what's your price? Why are you doing this? And so on. But I don't want to think about that. I want to go on this journey, and it has not ended for me because I have so many things that I want to do. I have no plans to retire. So I'm working on what I'm going to do in the next stage of my life. I thank Leap Africa for giving me this opportunity. I hope you heard me very well. I spoke from my heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Commissioner. We heard you loud, we heard you clear. Our minds are full, our hearts are full of gratitude, and we have taken in so much from this session. Thank you for your service to Nigeria, your service to Lagos State, your service to the young children who have encountered you. And thank you for spending this very important day for you with us. It's an important day for us too, and you being able to take time out of your own very busy day to spend it or celebrate this milestone with us means a lot and shows again the kind of leader that you are and the kind of values that you uphold and where your priorities are. So thank you so much, Honorable Commissioner. We truly appreciate your reflections, because indeed these were your reflections, and they were powerful reflections taking us through from where you started to where you are now, the work you've done, the people you've met. And two things that stood out for me, particularly in this conversation, was start where you are, start wherever you are, start with where you see a problem, go for it. And it was good to see the kindness of people who have come up to support your work. People who donated books, who donated money, who came together to champion causes that you started. And it goes to show that there are always people who are willing to stand by you when you're ready to fight a worthy cause. So thank you so much, Ma, for reminding us the beauty of Africans and our ability, the agency within us to work towards the change that we want to see and to be the change, and for sharing your values with us. Thank you so much. I hope that we have learned a lot. I have learned so much, and I'm looking forward to expanding my value base and making sure that it shows up in the work I do and even in my interactions with people. Thank you so much, Ma. Truly grateful.
Thank you.
Okay, so while we'll let the Honorable Commissioner get on with her very busy day, we are not at the end of our webinar yet. We're just getting started. The day is even about to get better. And as we have ushered you in and told you that this is our 21st anniversary webinar, we want to share with you some of the work that we have been doing in the past 20 years and what that impact looks like. So I'm going to welcome someone from our Monitoring, Evaluation, Research and Learning team, Tehemena Gabo, to come and share with us a report on our impact assessment over the last 20 years. Over to you, Tehemen.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Good afternoon. Special greetings to our distinguished audience. Thank you so much for making out time to join this webinar. I'm sure that the time that you have spent here so far has been rewarding. I also did enjoy listening to the Honorable Commissioner. Okay, so as Ellen said, my job this afternoon is quite simple. So I'm gonna be presenting the summary of the 20th anniversary impact report. So briefly, I'm going to tell you what this is about. So this is like compressing 20 years of Leap Africa into one report. And you can imagine like how that's going to look like. 20 years is quite a lot. And so this report was carried out by an external consultancy called the Social Investment Consultancy Africa. And I think it's really interesting that talking about the 20 years impact of Leap Africa, I mean, allowing someone from the outside to take a look, to sort of see what impact the organization has achieved over time, because perhaps if this 20 years report was produced by perhaps the monitoring evaluation team of Leap Africa, there may be a little bit of bias to say all wonderful things because they are part of the organization. But this report was done by an external organization. And so that sort of, brings a balance and, the absence of bias. And, it's quite strong evidence to the work that Leap Africa has done. And so members of the alumni were consulted during this report. There were a lot of interviews, a lot of surveys that were sent to members of the alumni, and then the friends of Leap Africa, some of our board members and some team members also supported this report. All right. Okay. So now, like I earlier said, the report itself is about 100 pages long. That's quite a lot. So what I'm here to do this afternoon is simply a summary of that report into maybe like 8 or 10 slides. So, I'm going to start with some of the key learnings, some of the key findings from this report. So I've sort of summarized them into key points. And then also, I've also put, some of the recommendations that the consultant put forward. And so one of the findings from that report is that Leap Africa has over the years, as you know, Leap Africa is a youth leadership focused organization. Leadership is a core at Leap Africa. And so what the report found out was that Leap Africa has been engaging young people, right from their teenage years, right when they're in secondary schools, through leadership and life skill development interventions. And this has helped to inculcate principles of ethical leadership into young people. I mean, while they are still growing up, while they are yet to go into adulthood. And this helps to sort of sustain those principles even when they get to adulthood. And it was suggested that this approach is great and should be, consolidated. And then another finding is, leveraging youth agency for the SDGs. I'm talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, which are meant to be global goals that are meant to be achieved by 2030. That's a couple of years from now. The organization is also big on the SDGs and has, worked through, very recent years, supporting young people who have local ideas to address some of the pressing challenges in their communities. Talk about climate change, talk about pollution and all of that. And so again, this is sort of supporting young people and letting them do the work, letting them use their creativity to do the work. That's also an interesting finding. And there's also the evidence supports that interventions such as these can be scaled. And another finding is that Leap Africa has also established quality partnerships in Nigeria and also across other African countries. And one thing that these partnerships have achieved is that they have helped Leap Africa to sort of scale their initiatives. And I think this is great. This is something that the organization should even do more. And then on the other hand, we talk of impact evaluation. And then the report finds that the organization has to do more of impact evaluations. And I quote the report saying that, some of the evidence that is on ground could be more impact. There has been some post-program evaluation. There has been some case studies, but when we talk of impact evaluation, we're talking of more rigorous and perhaps more broad and population-based changes. And they advise that impact evaluations will even help to communicate some of the big results that the organization has achieved. Another interesting finding is the use of e-learning systems in the organizations through a number of interventions. And this report finds that the e-learning platforms that the organization has adopted has helped to scale. Using e-learning systems, you are able to run an intervention that reaches over 5,000 or even 10,000 people. People that are scattered all over Nigeria, it could be all over Africa. And so you don't really need a physical presence there. And so that helps you to achieve scale in a limited time. And so the organization is also advised to stay on that part. And then another interesting finding is supporting entrepreneurs for social change. I do agree with this. The report also finds that, for those young people who are all about social justice, young people who are working with vulnerable communities, helping to bring about community change, Leap Africa has been one of the organizations that are sort of lended a helping. My apologies, sorry, I had a network interruption. So I'm just gonna go back from where I stopped. So sorry about that. Sorry, I think can you take back the slides to, aha, thank you so much. And so what are, the next one, please. All right, also the report finds that Leap Africa has extended funding opportunities and capacity building opportunities to initiatives that have been founded by young people. And the interesting thing about this finding is that Leap Africa is not just about reaching individuals, but when Leap Africa reaches young people, they help them to sort of build on their ideas, to build their own organizations. That way, the organization in partnership with these young people is able to achieve more impact, reach more people. And so I think this is quite interesting. Talk about gender equality and inclusion. And the interesting thing about this finding is that the organization is not only promoting gender balance through their interventions, but also, the report quotes that, staff records also shows that there is a balance, talk about male, female on the staff, on the workforce. And then perhaps one interesting suggestion or recommendation there is, on the intervention side, the organization can also try to include people from vulnerable populations. Pan-African reach, you will see in a couple of slides now that the organization has, spread her tentacles to other African countries, and the reports corroborates this claim. And then talk about ecosystem building, something that the organization is also very big, working with other youth actors in Africa to support community transformation, to coordinate, to put resources together, and to drive change at scale. Very interesting finding. On the thought leadership side, the report, found that the organization has produced books, they've published articles that have helped to sort of push knowledge out there, knowledge about young people, knowledge about leadership, knowledge about designing programs that are youth-centered. And, the way forward, perhaps something better that the organization can do to perhaps even do more in the area of thought leadership, according to that report, is, engaging think tanks and other research institutions in form of partnerships to see how thought leadership can be achieved at a bigger level. And then advocacy. On that side, the report finds that the organization has been a voice for young people, speaking for young people in government, social media, pushing out ideas that are in favor of young people. Okay, can we go to the next slide? All right, very interesting. Here are some of the numbers over the years, 20 years of existence. And within this time, 49,500 students have been trained. And then alongside 1,478 teachers have also been trained. And then you have 700 change projects. I'm going to briefly explain what we mean by change project. I mean, change project, typically, a change project is sort of, during our interventions, typically, perhaps if it's in a school or in a community, we ask the young people to look around and, design a solution to a problem, and then come up with that solution, and then we support them with a little funding and technical support to implement that project. So we call it a change project. There have been 700 of these very interesting projects. We've had students, secondary school students, build, I think that was in Lagos some years ago, they built a bridge in their community, sort of to help mobility. And so several projects, tree planting, several of them. And then 1,189 entrepreneurs have been trained, social entrepreneurs, solving very difficult problems that the market has not been able to solve. And then we have more on the next slide. 4,513 businesses have been supported. And through all of these activities, according to a report, we have over 1 million people, close to 2 million indirect beneficiaries that have been tied to some of the initiatives that the organization has launched within the 20-year period. I believe the numbers are more, actually. And many thanks to the Friends of Leap Africa, 480 of them. That certainly means that the organization has got here not alone. I mean, they didn't work alone to get here. There have been friends, there have been individuals, there have been organizations that have supported these organizations to achieve, this impact. And then, of course, this impact wouldn't be possible without the members of staff, 37 of them. I believe we have more at the moment. I mean, this report was carried out, with the last 20 years. I'm sure this year wasn't included. And then on the board, we have 30 individuals as well. 30 individuals have passed through the board. And then talking about funding and implementing partners, those people whose contribution has been very instrumental to our programs, 54 of them, 54 funding and implementing partners. All right, so these are some of the programs that the organization has implemented over the years. And the interesting thing is that some of these programs are still running thanks to our friends and partners. Very interesting. So in the next slides, I'm going to show you some of the countries where the organization has had some footprint. Shall we move to the next slide? All right, so 13 countries, including Nigeria, where Leap Africa has had footprints. But then, of course, through several other interventions, we've reached more. But we've had original footprints in this country, and I think that is fantastic. I think Leap Africa is truly Africa. It's truly Pan-African, and I think that's great. That's quite a lot to have been achieved in 20 years. So thank you so much for your time. And so this report is going to be available for the public in a short while. But then our 2022 REACH report is available. The communications department can put the link on the chat so that some of us can access and perhaps read about our most recent work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tehiman. Thank you for walking us through our impact over the last 20 years. Now that we've looked at where we're coming from, it's a great point to segue into where we are going to. So for this session, which I implore you to stay for, to pay attention, you will get to hear where LEAP is going. You would get to see ways in which you can partner with us, ways in which you can work with us towards this accomplishing our vision for Africa. So I would welcome back again our Executive Director, Kende Ayeni. With joining her for this session, we would also have our Program Manager, Osaume, and we would also have Ahmed Umar, who is in charge of the LEAP Leadership Institute. So please, let's welcome our speakers for this session. So I would start off with our Executive Director, Kende. And the question really is, what is next for LEAP Africa? Okay, so while we wait for Kenny to come on, we could have Ahmed. So Ahmed, please, could you start us off by speaking to the Leap Leadership Institute and what that means for Africa and what that even means for leadership in Africa?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. All right. Thank you. So I was going to just build on what had been said, following the mail report, and just take the audience mind to seeing how this can be done, across the continent. We have seen that the opportunity before us, that is the youth board, could either be a cause or an opportunity to a blessing. So how do we begin to all that we have learned in the past 20 years, begin to put all of this together to make sure that it's available to a lot of other organizations across the continent to be able to do this work of building the youth agency, scaling youth capacity, and then doing it at a very large scale. So, and then that is where we now think that, okay, we talk about the youth board and then say, oh, Africa is going to be double its population by 2050, and all those numbers. But again, we should not leave youth development to happenstance or just coincidence to say, okay, it's going to happen, youth are the future of Africa and it's going to happen like that. But we need deliberate effort. And just to now move into answering your question, really, is that LEAP Institute itself has been set up to now be that organization that would enable youth development to now be grounded in research. That is, what are the best practices to activate the youth agency? And how can we...
Hi, Ahmed. So sorry to interrupt you, but we're having some issues hearing you. So please, could you project or move closer to your microphone?
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Now?
Better.
All right.
Better.
So, yes, my apologies. So as I was saying, if we want to do this work at scale, right, we have seen the mail report, and then we have seen what we as a single organization have been able to achieve in 20 years. And then we now look at the opportunity before us, as it's the same thing. Okay, my apologies. Let me just quickly do another device. I think they still complain about my sound. So hold on.
Okay, so while we wait for Ahmed to fix his sound and join in with a different device to improve what we hear, we can move on to Osarame, who can speak to some of the programs that are coming up and how you can be a part of that and ways in which you could partner with us for the work that we do. So over to you, Osarame.
All right, thank you, Ellen, and many congratulations to Leap Africa on the 21st anniversary occasion. For us, in the 21st year, I mean, you had all of the data that was reeled out by our colleague from Merle, Tayman, and thank you, Tayman, for that. And I think somebody asked in the chat, how do we measure this up against the plans or the targets we set? We have done pretty well, I would say, in terms of what we had set for ourselves for a 10 to 15 year period. And then looking back and reflecting now, it's been very impressive. However, I think for us, in terms of always just innovating and pushing the boundaries, there needs to be a lot more that needs to be done. And everyone on this call can appreciate that because of the size of the problem we're up against on the continent, there's so much that's required. And the hearts and the heads and the hearts of Africans, young Africans especially, is required. And I say that to say that every single person on this call who's listening, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or you're here on Zoom, there's a part for you to play. There's a role for you to play. If you have been someone who's gone through any of the projects or programs at Leap Africa, even more is that responsibility that lies on your shoulders to be able to take leadership to the streets, is how I like to say it. Take leadership to the streets, take leadership to your community. And what does that mean for us? It means that in whatever shape or form, you're making your own meaningful contribution. You're not waiting till a project is handed over to you to do. You're not waiting till somebody confers a title on you. You're taking initiative, you're accepting responsibility in that time, in that moment, and you're making real change in your community. So whether you are leading self, or you are leading an organization, or you're leading an enterprise, or you are leading an institution, private sector, public sector, the development space, leadership calls that you must accept responsibility, because it's an African thing. It's an African problem we're up against. It's a Nigerian problem. I know that a lot of us on the call may have heard some references to Nigeria, but Leap Africa, I'm proud to say, has done work in those 13 countries that you saw Teime present. We've had fellows on the Social Innovators Program who've come up from those different countries. We've had teachers and scholars on another project who've come from some of those countries that you saw. So Leap Africa is looking to also continue to reinforce a presence in other parts of the continent. We've had a huge focus in the last few years on West Africa, and rightly so, because we are strategically positioned as a country, as a nation in that region. However, because we are thinking about the future and how we can continue to scale the impact and the effect that we're having, if we are going to bridge the leadership gap, then it's not a West African or a regional issue. It's an effort that requires all hands, all heads, all hearts, and that is across the board. So it's across the regions. So I'm inviting everyone on this call and everyone who's listening and watching. These are the different ways that you can work with Leap Africa. One of the key ways we always say is volunteering, and we have a massive project that runs every year since 2020. It's called the Youth Day of Service. Now, that project is simply about building a very strong volunteering movement across Africa. It's been often said that we don't see a lot of volunteering, whether in Nigeria or in the region. But we have seen through the Youth Day of Service in the last 3 years that there are young people who are either in the corporate organizations, or they're in the government or public sector, or they're in the development sector, who are passionate about just giving back, about doing something for their communities. And so one of the ways you can work with Leap Africa is volunteerism. If you haven't heard of the Youth Day of Service, if you've never done anything in your community, you've never given back, and you've always yearned for that opportunity, please head to our website right now. It's www.leapafrica.org, and you will see the different opportunities that exist for you to partner with us. So whilst there's volunteering, how do you volunteer? You can volunteer to either run a project, create a project, and execute a project in your community. We have a program where we also look at mentorship. Mentorship is so key for us at Leap Africa. And over the years, we've seen the effect that mentorship has had on young people. And everyone on this call will probably have their own mentorship stories. However, if you've never had your mentorship story just yet, then you can sign up to any of our programs. For us at Leap Africa, making secondary education work is so critical. And then raising talent or building talent that actualize the sustainable development goals is so important. I speak with every sense of urgency, guys, because what we have ahead of us is catch up. Africa needs to take a leap. And who better to take a leap forward into that future that we rightly and so desire and deserve as a continent than partnering with Leap Africa, right? So volunteering on as a mentor. Now, mentorship is multifaceted for us. We have mentorship where we're thinking expert. We're looking for expert and seasoned professionals to give that expert mentorship experience. And this is around subject matter because we have projects that are specific to subject matters, right? Now, there are other programs like the youth leadership where we get people who have some experience, who have either started enterprises or who have gone through their higher education and want to give back to their counterparts who are behind them, right? And that's the Youth Leadership Program. We have opportunities for mentorship there. So if you like to mentor, if you would like to volunteer with Leap Africa, head to our website. And then again, another way to volunteer is faculty. We have a faculty that continues to support with content creation, content development. Look, if you're going to prepare young people for leadership, content creation is so key. And for us at Leap Africa, one of our major pillars is thought leadership. Whilst we build ecosystems, whilst we're advocating for youth issues, thought leadership is so important. And so we take content provision, content creation very seriously. So if you have a subject area that you feel, whether it's in tech or any other industry, that you want to be able to contribute to that process of developing, designing, creating content, please reach out to us on the website. I think that we have opportunities. If you go to the website, there's a pop-up that will come up and you can fill a form and tell us how you want to support, how you want to work with us. The other email you can send an email to, the other email address, I beg your pardon, is info@leapafrica.org. I'm sure you see all those in the comments. My colleagues will drop that in the comments so you can follow those links and send us emails. Now, as we look into the future, one of the key things for us is that how can we begin to activate the agency inherent in every young people, whether in Nigeria, in Lagos, Abuja, Kampala, or Johannesburg, Cape Town, wherever it is that you are on the continent, Nairobi, Kigali, you can be part of this. And so for us, it's about activating every young person to begin to even execute projects and run with projects. It's something we're already doing across the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund project that we're running, across the Youth Day of Service program. Young people are already taking initiative. They're already accepting responsibility. There are people doing incredible things. Incredible things. Innovation is taking a new shape across the continent. Young people are getting up and they are taking responsibility for the problems in their local communities. We have young people across projects who are now becoming their own local government or councillors, local government chairmen and chairwomen, councillors, taking responsibility to make things better, to make lives better. And so whether it is in Africa, in West Africa or East Africa or North or South Africa, we're encouraging you to come on board and ensure that you're making your own contribution, because there's only so much we can do as individuals. I would close by saying, in the words of the late Charles B., who says that if each one on the continent in Nigeria can reach one, then each one can teach one. And if each one can teach one, then what a better country and continent, and by extension, world that we will have. So head to our website. It's www.leapafrica.org, and then send us an email at info@leapafrica.org. And we'll be more than happy to begin this journey of the next 10 to 20 years alongside young people like ourselves, this incredible team that has been able to achieve all of these things you heard Taime present over the years, so that together we can do more. And that in another 20 years, guys, we could come back on this call and have other generations give kudos to the work and the effort that we invested in making Africa the continent, the desired or desirable continent to live in, to do business, and to really just make impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Osarma, for that and for painting a very clear picture of how people can be a part of the work that we do. So Ahmed is now ready for us. Over to you, Ahmed.
Thank you so much. And can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much. And just picking up from doing more, right? I think all I wanted to say was, how can we then do much more beyond an organization? That's one. And then secondly, how can we ensure that our work, youth development across the continent, is rooted in research? So so that we don't just leave it to, anyhowness or just do it the way you want. We want to be deliberate about youth development, rooted in research and best practices. And that is where the LEAP Institute comes in. Our work is basically to develop those, best practices, collect these across the continent, make it available to youth practitioners and organizations developing young people, and ensure that every young person that is being supported through programs, through investment, through whatever way that we support young people is done in such a way that it's deliberate, it's evidence-based, and then it's something that we have seen work and it has been tested. Such that, the most important factor here, or the most important goal here for us, is that such that young people are being developed in a way that they can reach their full potential. I think that's sort of like what we are taking away, so that people being developed, these young people, were able to, even the commissioner mentioned earlier that, oh, I see a star in someone. That A star, how do we get there? And our belief is that all of this should be rooted in best practices and research, so that our work as youth practitioners are not being done, just anyhow, but, the profession is standardized. And then, of course, the practice is based on research. And we're able to do this at scale. That is, given the size of the problem, like Rome said, and of course we call it size of the opportunity as well. When we look at it from a positive angle, we have a huge population of young people. How do we ensure that every one of these young people gets access to opportunity, gets access to education, and they are, developed in that way and manner that they would grow up to be, responsible and, valuable citizens. So, and that is our work at the Institute, to ensure that our youth programming is evidence-based, and then to ensure that more organizations and individuals, that is youth professionals like us, are using evidence in that work. And we're able to do that on a large scale, being a digital-first institute. So I'll stop there. I haven't taken so much of your time earlier. All right, back to you, Ellen.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you for that wonderful light into the LEAP Leadership Institute and the need for us to have research-based solutions. Thank you for that, Ahmed. And we do invite you to come on board and be a part of this great work that is being done at the LEAP Leadership Institute. And there are so many ways in which you can be a part of it. And some of that information will be shared at the end of this conversation. So now, last but not the least, over to my ED, as she talks to us about our vision for Africa and what that looks like. What is next for LEAP Africa?
Thank you very much, Ellen. And the day is slowly breaking over here. Thank God for daylight right now. So I think you probably can see me better. But as I reflect on, just a second, as I reflect on our vision for Africa and what's next for LEAP, is to keep doing what we're doing. Big of the anticipation for us is really deepening the work that we've done in the last 21 years. And when we think about scaling, there is a phenomenon about scaling out and scaling deep and scaling wide and all of that type of scaling. And for us, we definitely want to deepen the work that we're doing, because the need is great in terms of the number of young people continues to rise by the day, except we do something about population control. But then again, the future is here. The young people we have now, we would need to cater for them for the next 3 decades at least, before population control probably kicks in or not. And so with the fact that we have a huge population, hence the need for us to deepen the work that we are doing, meaning we need to reach the unreached. We need to get into communities that we haven't been before. And for us to do that, for us to scale out, to scale deep and scale wide, it's collaboration. As LEAP is thinking about the next few years, we have to collaborate. We cannot do what we've done single-handedly. Yes, we've been backed by partners, donors, and funders, but there is strategic collaboration that will take us to the next level, that will take us into inner communities, that will allow us to diversify the format in which our curriculum, intervention, campaigns, programming, resources have been developed in order for us to reach those that are in their need, those that these resources have been curated to serve. And so I would say the chief of that would be, first, let's for Leap Africa, we are looking to scale out, to scale deep, to scale wide. And for us to do that, the second thing definitely is strategic communications. The third thing rather, I would say, is collective action. When we think about collective action, for all of us in the room and those that might be coming across this content in future, there is need for us to all collaborate. Collaborative action, collective action is very key. Again, sitting within the SDGs is Leaps to Work, which is under SDG 4, 8, 10, and 17. And the 17, of course, is the Partnership for Development. And we cannot outsource. We cannot outsource the action of every individual, the general public, youth agencies, and all those who are involved in caring for young people, whether in terms of policy creation, in terms of those who provide education resources, programming, interventions, and so on and so forth. We cannot outsource the problem and the solution to them. Each one of us, you and I, need to be involved in creatively solving some of the issues we've found. And so to say, to my point further on collective action, is the fact that we need the international community. We cannot do all of this without the international community, even though we're looking at homegrown solutions for the issues that we've had to set the right context. We still need the international community. We need the media, excuse me, to play their role. The social development community and development sector need to also play their role. The public sector need to play their role. Whilst it's easiest to have the government do most of the things that we are doing right now, we still need to continue to hold them accountable for the work they've done and accountable for the work that they will do. As you know, in Nigeria today, we are already in the brink of another political season where we've concluded elections, and these new governments that we now have that have been elected, we need to support them. We need to hold them accountable. We need to help them remember their manifestos. We need to help them remember what it is that brought them to where they are, where they have decided to govern our nation and our lands. And so for us in Africa, as we think about the future beyond the collective action, is to say about an inclusive and prosperous continent. And when we speak about that, is our work with entrepreneurs, talking about SMEs, MSMEs, because we all cannot all have an outfit that allows us to hire 20, 40 employees. Some of us will probably do what we do with 2, 4 people at best for the next 10 years, and we will still have the same impact and influence if we are very careful about that. Yes, Peter, I see your question. And so when we think about an inclusive and prosperous Africa, we need to invest in entrepreneurship. Everyone needs to be bringing something to the table. I don't know if we have overused the word, a seat at the table, bringing something to the table. What do you bring to the table? Even though we've used that on social media as some of the banters we've had in the past. But the truth is, when we think about a prosperous and inclusive Africa, we need to bring something to the table. You and I need to bring something to the table in terms of creating jobs and employment, safe spaces. You can't be perpetuating evil. You can't be perpetuating fraud, corruption, and other things that makes Africa ranks, top or bottom in any of the indexes. And thinking that you're contributing to an inclusive and prosperous Africa, you need to also check yourself and check how your work, your actions and inactions is also contributing, which takes me to the beginning of the statement I made when I came up to speak about our vision about raising ethical leaders. And for us, it's also about ethics and leadership and eventually good governance at the end of the day. So it's all ties up eventually into one big picture, into one big vision. To also get us excited would be some of the programs that we are thinking about at Leap Africa as we continue to see about how dynamic young people have become, thinking about the future of work, in artificial intelligence, automation, autonomy, and all of these things. We are also striving to ensure that our curriculum and our content are relevant for the people we serve, for the constituent that we serve today and tomorrow. And when I speak about tomorrow, I speak about it in near terms, in terms of a year from now, 2 years from now. I mean, nobody saw COVID coming. And since COVID came, people have just managed to bounce out of it completely in 3 years. And so when we speak about tomorrow, tomorrow is not far away and far removed from us. It's as close as you can blink your eyes and open it. And so as we continue to challenge ourselves internally, we are mindful of all the things around us. I had watched a documentary just yesterday about artificial intelligence and how this is really advancing. I know that it may seem a bit foreign or maybe not as plausible for us in Africa or maybe not in Nigeria per se today, but it's not far off and we need to be prepared. And so for us at Leap Africa, as we think about the future of Africa, is the relevance of the content and new programming that will allow us to do that, leveraging technology, of course, underscoring ethical leadership, values-based leadership, service-driven leadership, and all of that comes with it, infrastructure development that comes with it. And so I think in rounding off is inclusive resourcing. I know for a fact that to solve a problem, you don't have to throw money at it. Not all the problems we have in Africa today is one that requires naira and dollars or pounds sterling or euros or whatever it is, or any kind of currency that we want to spend. The meat of the matter is for us to continue to see how inclusive we are. And so as we design the future of Leap Africa with intention to serve Africa, we are thinking of how much more inclusive can we be. You know, I've spoken about it in terms of the format of our programs and projects, but also bringing them forward to say, have their voices been heard? So we would throw out more exciting projects that would allow us to project that inclusiveness within the work that we've done. So thank you so much, Ellen. I think I'll hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Thank you for that. Thank you for shedding the light on the importance of the work we do, why we do it, and where we're going to. As we wrap up, we cannot do that without a very important community to us, a community that supports what we do, a community that is truly the highest representation of the work that we do, our alumni community. So recently we conducted a free and fair election where we brought in new leaders for the alumni community. And now we would like to meet them in a short address as they also share with us their thoughts and blueprint for the future of the alumni. So please, let's welcome the president and the vice president of the Leap Africa Alumni Association. The president, we have Dr. Amina Ayodeji Ogundiran. And we also have, so not the vice president, pardon me. We have Funke Adeoye, the former legal secretary of the Leap Alumni Association. So please, let's welcome them as they share with us their plans and projections for the association. Over to you, Dr. Amina. Do we have Amina and Funke on here, please? Yes, we do have Amina on here. Amina, we can't hear you if you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you so much.
All right. What does it mean join as panelists, stay as attendee? Can I just close this page that's popping up?
Join as a panelist so you can turn on your camera and we can see you. And you have more control. Okay, so please you can unmute now and go right ahead.
Okay. So am I on mute now?
Yes, you're on mute and we can see you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you for today. I think that it's the stories that we tell that makes history, right? It's from how we started. What happened before we started? What was the mission behind how things came to be, or how, you know, people came to bring up ideas that others will leverage on. So I am grateful for today. 21 years is a long time. And I would say that it has grown, Leap Africa has grown. I have seen it. And at a point when I moved from Nigeria, I just thought that I needed a place to associate, a place to belong, a place to help me connect to my root, connect back home, a place that I can also share from a great vision. And today is, you know, one of those days, you know, that we're marking this remarkable milestone. Speaking from the alumni perspective, I would say that it is such a great honor to be addressing everyone here today. And as I thought about today, I thought about two things, right? I thought about the importance of association. Let me see your hands up if you want to associate with something bad. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you want to associate with something good. So that is the mind that I'm coming here with. Leap Africa has been good to me personally, to my husband, to my peers, to people who I've been talking to, who have passed through, you know, this resourceful organization. So I felt the need to associate. And as I lead the alumni community, many of them have reached out and they have continuously emphasized on their interest and the significance of that association. So we are building this network because we want to key to a parent body that is good, exciting, resourceful, and we want to associate with. So association is big today. Another is belongingness. How many of us want to belong to something that doesn't make us feel good, something that doesn't make us feel like we are in the spirit of growth, something that doesn't challenge us, right? As young leaders, we want to belong in communities, places, spaces that continuously impact us positively. And if I can share from my theoretical perspective, one of the theories, you know, of adults is that we are so self-directed and our reward is more intrinsic than extrinsic. So at this point, it's not about everything that can come into our hand, but the things that are inside of us that makes us feel good. And today, I want to say on behalf of my colleagues, on behalf of the network, that we feel good about this milestone. We'll feel good that we can associate, and because of that, we share in the spirit of belongingness today. So thank you. And as we think about this, you know, network, Please come in. If there, some of you that have not been active with us, we are here and we have a lot of interesting programs that are coming in, and we are making them about you, about the members, about the network, because we want you to associate and we want you to feel comfortable as you belong to this great space. So thank you so much, and I hope to be connecting with every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amina. Thank you for that warm welcome. Funke, please, we would like to hear from you.
All right, thank you so much, and good day, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Amina, for that very warm welcome, and thank you so much, Kenny. I listened to your speech, and I was just smiling because you rightly mirrored how much of an impact Leap Africa has been, not just to Nigeria, but to entrepreneurs in Nigeria, which Amina also mirrored in her conversation. I'm not even sure what to say again, because it feels like the president of the Alumni Association has said a lot, but I'm just going to chip in one or two things. And that the first thing is, in just thinking through my few thoughts concerning today, celebrating Leap Africa at 21, there was a line, or there is a word that came to my mind, or a phrase, which is that Leap Africa is the gift that keeps giving. And I think Dr. Amina also, mirrored that in her opening speech, that Leap Africa is a gift that keeps giving. It's a gift that keeps giving to everyone who associates with it, and specifically for alumni of Leap Africa. When you associate yourself with the body or with the alumni association, you keep reaping benefits from Leap Africa, even months and years after you participate in any of their programs. So I participated in the Leap Africa Social Innovation Program in 2019, and up to date, I still benefit so much from the association in terms of the people. Now, there are amazing people that you will meet by virtue of the alumni network. Dr. Amina probably graduated from Leap Africa's program several years ago, long before I probably even started my entrepreneurial journey. But, she's been of value. So she's been of immense value to me and to several entrepreneurs. So I served in the previous administration where she was I think the monitoring and evaluation lead, and now she's leading the association. And I would just say, please support as much as possible. Support her, and help us to make the alumni body, get stronger. Because the truth is, there are so many quality people who have come out of Leap Africa's programs. Leap Africa is that gift that keeps giving. But for you to make the most of a gift, you have to be ready to receive it. So receiving is basically participating, in Leap Africa's programs, in the alumni bodies program, and also spreading the word, right? There are so many alumni that don't even know that there are things you can benefit from being an alumni. Just, I think about last week or 2 weeks ago, I received an email. I think there is a collaboration when Kehinde was talking about the partnership between collaboration, the way for the future, which is collaboration. I received an email from Leap Africa on a specific program for SIP alumni, and it's a partnership between, I think, the International Youth Foundation and Leap Africa to support entrepreneurs, and that's just really one out of a lot of other opportunities. So I don't want to take too much of your time. Two things: please support the Alumni Association, belong, inform any of your friends or colleagues who participated in the program that there is so much more in store for them if they are part of the Alumni Association and they also participate fully. And also just to say thank you, Leap Africa, for what you're doing. Congratulations on 21 years. That is a big deal in a country like Nigeria, when people start institutions and institutions just go down. So thank you for being a great example to us, and thank you for continuing to support young entrepreneurs, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Funke. Thank you again, Dr. Amina. Thank you for your good wishes, for encouraging people to either become an alumni, or if you're already an alumni, partner with this new leadership for the work that they're set to do and the impact they're set to amplify as they work alongside the Leap Africa team to continue to reach more people and even enable the people who are already within the ecosystem or already within the organization, even as alumni, to do more, to be more, and to reach more. So thank you so much. Thank you for sticking here with us. We have come to the end of the webinar, and as we wrap up, I'm going to invite Osarome to give the closing remarks as we step off. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ellen. And many thanks to Funke and Dr. Amina and all our speakers today, including the Honorable Commissioner, for coming here, and of course to the audience, everyone who's either been an alumni, who's come through one program or the other at Leap Africa. Would like to say thank you, because truly we wouldn't have gotten to 21 years without you. And the people we serve are so important to us. We don't refer to them or regard them as beneficiaries anymore. We now call them constituents, because there's a part that they play in co-creating the solutions that serve them with the organization Leap Africa. So a lot of things have been said today. Collaboration is key. Giving has been quite prominent. And my question or charge to us today is, how do we continue to give to a continent, give to a country, give to a community? Many years ago, they said it took a village to raise a child. We know that that's not commonplace these days, but what can we begin to do as individuals, collectively, through partnerships, working with Leap Africa, not just Leap, but other organizations who are doing similar work, working across borders, working cross-regionally? How can we begin to solve problems? How can we begin to reach more people that need us? The continent is waiting on us. The nation is waiting on us. And I believe and I trust that we will not disappoint. Once again, thank you to everyone. Many thanks to the team that works tirelessly at Leap Africa, present, past, and I dare say future, to those who would continue the work in successive generations. But big thanks to everyone who's joined us, to our board, who also give us their time, who give us value, who give us their expertise on a daily basis, whether it's remotely or physically. We want to say thank you. We couldn't have gone this far without everyone who's served on our board, everyone who's come through Leap as a team member, as a Leaper. Many thanks. And for everyone who's joined us and who's ready to work this walk with us and this journey over the next few years, we say thank you in advance. Thank you very much. Do enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend ahead. God bless.
So I established Leap Africa in 2002, motivated by two convictions. One, that Africa desperately needed a new generation of principled, dynamic, innovative leaders who will transform the continent. And that our young people were leaders of today and tomorrow.
We are poised to raise millions of Africans. We are poised to have a research institute within our Leap Leadership Institute, and so much more that we are planning to do through our Premier Research Center.
There are many bright spots, and where you see those bright spots in Africa, they're really linked to effective, committed, and dynamic leadership from the top. They're linked to a strong private sector and a civil society that works. And that's the vision we have.
We're not just scaling out, we are scaling deep. We want to understand what more, how best, what is unique, what will make success for a young person in the next 5 years.
I really believe we've served as catalysts In fact, we went out with that vision to serve as a catalyst in the ecosystem, not only by inspiring our young people to become change agents themselves and become social innovators to start their own organizations across the continent, but we really wanted to partner with others to change the ecosystem, to change the nonprofit and civil society landscape, and I think we've done that.
We have unlearned some things, we have failed forward, and this has strengthened our systems, our structures, our people, our processes in such a way that we can only expand and scale. We can scale upwards, we can scale that's vertically, horizontally, as well as going deep with what we're doing even internally.
And we are creating the next generation of leaders in the public, private, non-profit sectors who can drive the transformation we desperately need on the African continent.